What's going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's episode, I want to do things a little differently, more of a longer conversation. I've had some big long-term goals that I checked the boxes on recently, and I want to just talk about, the last 12 months in the process and what it looked like to achieve the Ironman, hit 5 million in production with my sales volume, and also clear $50,000 worth of credit card debt. And I know these are big topics that a lot of people have interest in or, they struggle with. So I figured I would, just talk about my process and how my experience was and what I did to overcome some of these struggles and obstacles in my life. So let's talk with the Ironman. I think the Ironman was a great experience. It was something that I committed to, maybe 3 years ago that I didn't really understand exactly the level or the gravity of that commitment and what exactly it would entail. My time was faster on my full than on my half, and I think a lot of that goes down to you practice how you play. And I had my coming to Jesus moment, or my moment when I realized that I could either be miserable during my races or I could be miserable and sacrifice during my training, and ultimately then enjoy my race day and use it more as a celebration of the hard work that I've put in. And I chose that one from the obvious reasons, but it entails more work on the front end. I think one of the biggest things I did to be successful with my race was I went and rode the course. I went and drove down and spent hours and hours and weeks riding the exact course that I would eventually ride on race day. And because of that, I was accustomed to the hills. I knew where everything was, knew exactly how to prepare myself nutritionally and physically to achieve this feat. And that's why on race day, after 112 miles, I got off the bike 1 minute past my goal time with a smile, and a lot of people around me seemed like they were miserable. And not to say that they weren't enjoying themselves, but it's a long race. It's a hard race. I think a lot of people, though, and I was chatting, before the swim with a lot of the racers, they knew it was a difficult bike course, but they didn't have the time to come down and do it. Some of us don't actually have the time, and some of us won't make the time. And I think in our lives, we have to dictate what is actually the difference here. Are we holding ourselves back, or can we actually physically not do it because we're constrained? And sometimes I think we're telling ourselves a story, and once we realize that it's a lot of what we tell ourselves is honestly complete BS. Some of the other things I did to prepare for the race, I think a lot of people struggle with the swim. They're scared of the open water. They don't know how to swim in open water. They don't practice enough. So what did I do? I upped my swimming frequency every week. So I swam 2 to 3 times a week, every other week. And then the last 2 months before the race, I swam every Friday morning or afternoon in Lake Michigan. Practice, 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 because I knew if I got in the water every week, a couple times a week, eventually it would just become second nature. And that's exactly what happened. And in my first Ironman, I jumped in the water and froze up and almost had a panic attack. And in this race, I got in the water and literally got after it. And I felt like I was an actual machine. I couldn't even believe how hard I was actually swimming. And so I think, what's the point? Why am I talking about this? These are the things that can change when you work at something over a long period of time and you're consistent. I went from not being able to do any of these things, never really cycling in my life, never swimming competitively or, for a timed amount of or duration, and never really running too long, to being able to do a full Ironman in a couple years. Some people can do it, and kind of bootstrap it in 6 months. I don't think I'm that kind of guy, but I think if you want to achieve any of these big, scary goals, you should try it, because the person you become on the journey is so worth it. I look back at who I was a couple years ago, and I could see the differences, not only just physically, but mentally, how I approach things, how tough am I, how I deal with pain and resistance, and, when it's long hours and I haven't slept, and how I react to it. I know that at the end of the day, my discipline will get me through things that maybe my emotions don't necessarily want to do. I would highly recommend it. Best day of my life, amazing experience. Madison is a tough course, but it's definitely a fun course. And I look forward to doing Cozumel next year, and the 70.3 in Rockford I think will be a great experience. So looking forward to, taking guys along with that journey, and, how I improve. Goal time will be 12 hours or less on that, and we will get that done. So follow along and let's have some fun, and hope to see you out there. Ciao.